Mombasa, you probably know it for the beaches, the food, and the wild night that tourists can't stop about. But behind the palm trees and the Instagram filters is a city fighting a different kind of battle. Mombasa currently has the highest number of active criminal gang in Kenya, 73 in total. For context, Nairobi, Kenya's capital, comes in second with 56. That gap, yeah, it's scary. But today, we are not talking about all 70. We are focusing on just one, TMK Gang, aka Temeke Wanaume, a group that went from kicking footballs to kicking down doors. This is the story of how a brotherhood built on the street football turned into one of Mombasa's most feared criminal organizations. Welcome to Shadows of Justice. I'm Mellisa, and this episode might change the way you see Kenya's coastal paradise. Make sure you like, subscribe, and let's get into it. At the center of TMK Gang was a name that still sends chills down the coast, Mohammed Mahsen. But on the streets, everyone knew him as Dogo Presso. He was just 21 years old, born and raised in the narrow, sun-washed alleys of Kibokoni, Old Town, Mombasa. As a kid, he loved swimming in the ocean, playing barefoot football on the beach, nothing out of the ordinary. But those childhood moments weren't just innocent fun. They were the beginning of something darker. Because the same boys he played ball with, they became his inner circle. Bobocha, Shafir, Ameto, his day one boys, and now his lieutenant. At first, TMK had a mission, or at least that's what they told themselves. "We're just protecting our hood," they said. Their goal, defend Kibokoni from rival gang in Majengo, kind of like a street-level vigilante squad. But yeah, that didn't last. What started as community defense spiraled fast into something else, something ugly. TMK went from protectors to predators. And soon, the same people they claimed to defend were the ones living in fear. At first glance, you'll think these guys were just regular coastal youths playing football by the ocean, cracking jokes under the palm trees. But as time passed, something started to change. And it all began with how they passed their time. See, TMK wasn't just a gang born out of violence. It was born out of boredom, fear, and frustration. These guys were unemployed, stuck in their neighborhood 24/7. And why? Because venturing outside meant risking your life. Rival gangs were everywhere, especially in places like Majengo. And stepping into the wrong street could get you slashed or worse. So, instead of school or work or any real structure, TMK spent their days on the beach, smoking weed, popping rohypnol. That's the part people don't talk about enough, the drug. Rohypnol, aka Rofia, is a small unassuming blue pill, usually prescribed to people with severe anxiety or insomnia. But on the street, it's something totally different. Priced at around 850 Kenyan shilling per tab, it's cheap enough to stay hooked and strong enough to knock out your common sense. They'll slide it under their tongue like candy. Just chill, get drowsy, get numb. And if you saw someone with a bright blue tongue, yeah, that was the giveaway. But it wasn't just about getting high. This drug-filled session bred paranoia and violence. Conversations got darker. Resentment towards rival gang deepened, and slowly the group started evolving from beach boys into something far more dangerous. With their judgment clouded and adrenaline running, they started arming up. Now, while gangs in Nairobi were known to flash guns, TMK had a different play. Dogo Presso wasn't about bullets, he was about blades. Pangas became their signature, large, gleaming machetes that they will proudly pose with, and it wasn't just about protection anymore. It was about intimidation. intimidation. Dogo Presso, ever the showman, documented everything. He posted photos online of him and his boys holding up pangas, wearing gang colors, looking like a local version of a horror cast. He even went one step further and designed a TMK Gang logo, a brutal-looking arc at its center, the symbol of fear they wanted etched into the minds of their enemies and the committee. From the outside, it looked like chaos, but to them, it was the beginning of a brand. A gang that no longer needed to hide, a gang that wanted to be known. TMK wasn't the only gang trying to run the streets of Mombasa. Just across the divide in Majengo, there was Floropa Gang, a crew with a story almost identical to TMK's childhood friend, beach football, drug, violence. The only difference, they wore different colors and claimed different stuff. At first, it was just online beat. TMK would post pictures flexing pangas. Floropa would clap back with their own posts, showing off knives, machetes, and even rumors of firearms. The caption, all threat, stay on your side, we see you, touch Majengo and you're done. But this wasn't just trolling for likes. This was real, and then it turned deadly. August 12, 2016, Old Town, a wedding was happening, a night of celebration, full of music, food, and dancing. And then chaos. Weso, a member of the Floropa gang, was attending the event when he was hacked to death by unknown attackers. No warning, no escape, just pure brutal violence. Nobody officially knew who did it. The streets were quiet, but the whispers, they were loud. Everyone was pointing fingers at TMK. Whether they did it or not didn't matter. To Floropa, this was war. Weso's death became the breaking point in a feud that had been building for years. Online threats turned into real-world bloodshed, and weddings, became the new battleground. What was supposed to be peaceful cultural events started turning into gang hunting ground. Night after night, attacks kept happening. More fights, more stabbing, more funerals. The violence got so bad, the Mombasa police chief had to step in. August 16, 2016, just 4 days after Weso's murder, authorities issued a citywide ban on night wedding. You heard that right. No more night wedding in Mombasa. The move was meant to stop the violence, to cool things down, to remind the city that no matter how deep the beef went, innocent lives were being dragged into it. But the truth, by then, it was already too late. The gangs weren't just fighting for turf anymore. They were fighting for revenge. By early November, things had hit a boiling point. Floropa wasn't going to let Weso's death slide, so they struck back fast. A bold, retaliatory hit aimed straight at TMK's pride. That was all Dogo Presso needed to snap. He wanted revenge, and not just in whispers. He made it public. He went straight to Faki Ropa, the alleged head of the Floropa gang, and sent him a voice note on WhatsApp. Not just any message. This one was icy. And then he posted it online for the whole city to see. Now, here is where it gets kind of heartbreaking. In that conversation, Faki didn't want smoke, but mercy wasn't on the menu. Just 2 days later, Dogo Presso lost it on social media. Post after post, rage-filled caption, chilling threats. He wasn't hinting, he was screaming. I'm coming for heads. I'm thirsty for blood. It was raw, it was disturbing, it was real. And you could feel the fear ripple across Mombasa. Even some members of Floropa tried to de-escalate. They wanted no part in what was coming, but Dogo, he wasn't trying to hear it. He mocked them, called them cowards, dared them to respond. He wasn't bluffed. At this point, the war wasn't just happening on the streets, it was on the timeline, and it was spiraling fast. But Mombasa police, they weren't sleeping. They were watching every post, every comment, every threat. So, the same day, Dogo dropped his blood-soaked warning. They moved in. A surprise raid led to the arrest of 4 key TMK members, Bobocha, Ameto, Ismail, and Swale, the inner circle. In the operation, police reportedly recovered a fake pistol, several machetes, and a stash of marijuana. But the suspects, they denied everything, claimed The weapons weren't theirs, claimed it was a setup. Of course, the streets weren't buying it, because by now, everyone knew TMK wasn't just a gang, it was a movement, and the movement was out for blood. By December, the situation in Mombasa had spiraled out of control. Just 2 days after 4 of his boys were arrested, Dogo Presso came back online with a message that froze everyone who read it. This wasn't a warning. This was a death sentence. He didn't care that the police were watching. He didn't care that his crew was under pressure. He posted one final blood-chilling threat. "You haven't stepped into my territory. Fine, I'm coming into yours." And he meant every word of it. It was the festive season, a time when most people were with family, celebrating, but not TMK. Led by Dogo Presso himself, the gang made their move. They marched into Majengo, armed, ready, and filming everything. Pangas in hand, masks on, adrenaline high. They weren't there to flex, they were there to hunt.
Hiyo ndani ya majei, ndani ya ropa.
Lazima mupende around
And then they found someone, not a gang member, not even someone involved, just an innocent man in the wrong place at the wrong time. The group surrounded him, dragged him down, and unleashed one of the most brutal attacks ever captured on a phone camera. They didn't just film it, they posted it. Dogo Presso uploaded the video directly to his Facebook account, captioning it with an absolutely chilling message: "We will fish you out and we will slaughter you." That was it. The mask was off. There was no denying what TMK had become. This wasn't just gang beef. This was terrorism happening in broad daylight, on social media, in the heart of a tourist city. The video shocked Mombasa. Even the police, who had been relatively reactive up to this point, were now under public pressure to do something. Because if these guys were bold enough to record an assault and publish it for likes, what wouldn't they do next? After weeks of silence and rumors that he had gone underground, Dogo Presso resurfaced online. And what did he say? Not an apology, not a step back, another bold declaration. It was official. The violence wasn't ending, it was escalating. After months of chaos, things seemed to settle down a bit. The intense gang warfare had gone low-key, almost like the city was holding its breath. But the calm was just a pause, because on April 1st, 2017, TMK hit back in a way that shocked Mombasa's old town to its core. 3 men, faces hidden but weapons clear, brandishing pangas, stormed into a local M-Pesa shop during the early hours. They didn't just scare the shopkeeper, they stole cash, plus thousands of shillings worth of airtime. The CCTV caught every second. The city saw the faces, the weapon, the brazen daylight robbery. Weeks later, police wrapped up their investigation and they weren't holding back. They released photos, not just of the robbers, but the entire TMK gang. A most wanted list was published, plastered on walls and circulated in news reports. At the very top, the boss himself, Dogo Presso. Right behind him, Ameto and Bobocha. Names everyone already knew. Names linked to the wave of violence gripping Mombasa. But the streets had a different plan. Despite the spotlight and the police pressure, Bobocha wasn't laying low. He resurfaced into Madobini, and instantly trouble followed. He stabbed a man in cold blood, snatched his phone, tried to make a quick escape. But this time, the people had seen him. They recognized his face from the most wanted posters plastered all over the city. A crowd quickly gathered, voices rising. Anger boiled over. There was no mercy. In an act of street justice, a violent violent, brutal retribution. Bobocha was beaten to death on the spot. The message: the people weren't waiting for the police anymore. They were taking matters into their own hands. And in the shadows of Mombasa's winding streets, the war between the gang and the city had become something far more dangerous, a battle for survival. Before his violent end, Bobocha had one last message for Mombasa, a chilling photo, a promise to terrorize innocent residents. No remorse, no mercy. Then karma caught up. The very night Bobocha was beaten to death by an angry mob, the police struck hard. They raided a gang hideout and captured 5 suspects, armed to the teeth, with crude weapons ready to bring more pain to the community. Bobocha's death wasn't just a headline, it was a massive blow to the TMK. The gang's backbone shattered. His girlfriend mourned him online, her words dripping with rage and a vow for revenge. She was stunning, fierce, unyielding, a force adding fuel to an already dangerous fire. Meanwhile, the pressure was closing in on Dogo Presso. The manhunt was relentless. The walls were closing around. He knew his time was running out. In a surprising move, Dogo surrendered, not alone, but flanked by civil rights group and the influential MP Abdulswamad. During his surrender, Dogo tried to rewrite the story, claimed it was all self-defense, a justification for the violence that had gripped Mombasa.
Kwa sababu alimdunga ndugu yangu, kazani yangu, na sisi wakati huko wa Kiafrika tulislimishwa, au sio? Na sisi tulikwenda kwa sababu harusi ya ndugu yetu na walimdunga, na sisi tulikuwa tujakwenda kwa ubaya, tulikwenda kujidefense. Na sisi tuko tayari, kilikuwa si ubaya tusikilikuja leo ku.
MP Abdulswamad, now Mombasa's governor, stepped up. He promised to mediate, to bring the gangs together, to find a way to stop the bloodshed. With his help, some members, including Dogo, got a temporary release, a fragile window for peace.
Naweka hawa vijana wote kwa ukumbi mmoja. Kila mmoja aweze, ni lazima watu waweze kusameheana. We cannot live kama kicowboy hapa.
But peace was short-lived. On July 20th, 2017, Dogo was arrested again after more complaints flooded in. This time, the court set bail at 15,000 Kenyan shillings, allowing him to walk free while awaiting trial. The TMK gang, led by Dogo Presso, left scars that ran deep on families, on communities, on the very soul of the city. Their rise and fall is a harsh reminder: when fear takes root and violence becomes the language, nobody truly wins. The gangs might fade, the headlines might change, but the wounds they leave, those linger long after the cameras go quiet. Mombasa's fight for peace is far from over, and the question remains: how many more will be lost before the shadows finally lift? Nairobi Inside.